Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the regular meeting of the FORA Reuse Authority Board of Directors. It's Friday, November 8th, about 2 o'clock. We'll be adjourning an open session, going into closed session. Prior to going into closed session, if any member of the public has any comments with regard to any of the items we'll be discussing in closed sessions, which are conference with legal counsel of existing litigation, Government Code 54956.9 Alpha, 5 cases. 1, Keep Florida Wild versus Florida Reuse Authority. 4, case numbers M114961, M116438. Also, Bogan versus Hulamard, case number M122980. 3rd, City of Seaside versus Valenzuela, case number M124499. Next, City of Marina versus Florida Reuse Authority, case number M11856. And we'll also have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956.9 Bravo. Any member of the public wishing to address the Board of Directors on any of these items before we go into closed session? Seeing none, the public comment period is closed. We are now adjourned in open session. We'll be reconvening next door. Thank you very much. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. We're reconvening an open session after being in closed session. If our counsel would report out on closed session, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The board met in closed session and heard from counsel concerning each of the 5 items that are listed on the agenda that are in litigation, existing litigation, and after considering what counsel advised and told the board, there is nothing to report out.
Thank you, John. Next, we have acknowledgments, announcements, and correspondence. We have a special guest with us here today. Councilmember Selfridge will introduce the guest.
Thank you. It is my honor to introduce Rafig Rustamanov, the Deputy Consul General of Azerbaijan, who is stationed in Los Angeles, and he came 1 week ago today. So he is brand new to California, and he just got to Monterey this morning.
Okay.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. I am happy to be here. Azerbaijan and United States had a deep relationship, and our city Lankaran and Monterey has sister city relations. I just last week arrived Los Angeles. It's my first mission visit in United States. I love this city. Have a good time. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, Mr. Eric Morgan has an announcement.
While I was off being furloughed, I noticed a big puff of smoke coming from the former Ford Ord, and it was my good friend Bill Collins cleaning up the property there, so I really want to thank him and congratulate him. I think it's 700 acres that are going to be cleaned up as a result of that prescribed burn that happened. That wasn't actually the first burn that happened in that area. There was a burn probably 2 months before that, which was our motor grader that was vandalized and was torched. So I'm glad this one was actually on purpose. So thank you very much, Bill. That's a thankless job. It's really tough, but it's the property that you're cleaning up is spectacular property. We really look forward to that property being opened up and available to the public. I get a chance to be out there quite a bit. Of course, Bill and his staff gets to be out there quite a bit, but it's wonderful property, and you will love it once you can get on it. So really looking forward to that. The second thing I wanted to do is this November 16th, we have a special event. It's our National Public Lands Day event, National Make a Difference Day event, and we're actually joining Dr. Ochoa this year on November 16th, which is the day of service, investiture day of service. So volunteers that are students or faculty at Cal State University Monterey Bay can sign up as the Fort Ord project is one of their volunteer projects and join us. So we really would like you to spread the word throughout the community. November 16th, Saturday at 10 o'clock. Come on out. We have 2 different sites that folks can show up at and volunteer, and then we treat them to music and a band. We have live music that's being sponsored by partners such as PG&E and others this year. So I'm going to pass out a few flyers. I'm not sure we made enough to go all the way around, but if you have any interest in participating in that, just give us a call and we'll get you some more information. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have our executive officer has a few announcements.
Yes, the first one is about the Base Reuse Implementation Colloquium. Our co-host CSUMB has set aside December 12th and 13th to hold that colloquium. Right after the colloquium on the 12th and 13th, we will have a FORA board meeting. It should be noted that the Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee has met feverishly over the last month or so to put together an extraordinary list of speakers for the colloquium. In fact, if I recall correctly, PRAC committee members Morton and Beach, along with Steve Ensley and others, spent from 3:45 to 1:45 a.m. last week going over all of the items in the schedule. So I just wanted to point out to everyone to please put on your schedule the 12th and 13th and check the website for how to get your tickets for the colloquium. Second, Chair, is the next Monday at 1 p.m. That's November 11th at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. There will be a clinic groundbreaking for the DOD DVA clinic, and right after the groundbreaking ceremony at the Veterans Transition Center and at the FORA offices next door will be receptions for those participating in the groundbreaking.
Again, make sure you put your calendar for 1 p.m. It was initially advertised at 11 o'clock, so you might have a BlackBerry or an iPhone with 11 o'clock. It's a long wait until 1 o'clock from there, so thank you, Michael. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. There was a revised version of the October 4th board minutes distributed this week, and there are copies on the table. Does any member of the board wish to pull any of the board minutes from October 4th or 11th for questions or comments? Yes, Jane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On October 4th, I see that I am correctly noted as being absent, and we have an alternate from the County of Monterey, but either Supervisor Potter or Supervisor Salinas has disappeared from the roles somehow, unless Nick Chulos was representing 2 county supervisors. So I just had a question about that.
Yes. Lena?
We only list board members as absent if they don't have an alternate present.
Okay, so so Nick Chulos was the alternate for both Supervisors Potter and Salinas? Usually it's one person,
No,
one
he
vote.
would have been the alternate for one, so I'll have to go back and look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the board wish to pull any items or ask questions? Out to the public, any members of the public wish to pull any of the items for questions or explanation?
Yvonne Stone, Director of Fort Ord Environmental Justice Network. I looked through these minutes, and we come out here, I'm representing that portion of the community that is not here for reasons that we all know. And to just say that we accepted comments from the public is not acceptable. And that is not public participation. So if other people have the right to be quoted or noted in these minutes, so should we. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Any other members of the public wishing to make any comments with regard to the minutes? Okay, back to the board. Okay, we have a motion from Supervisor Potter, a second from Councilmember Morton. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, next, old business, consistency determination, 2010 Monterey County General Plan. We had a member of the public contact the board. We've had several letters with regard challenging the item and questioning noticing requirements. To allow the authority council and staff time needed to address the questions, we're going to need to reschedule this item itself. We're not going to be discussing this here today. We've had a preliminary poll of the members of the board, and it looks like November 22nd is when we'll have a special board meeting to talk specifically and focus on the consistency determination of the 2010 Monterey County General Plan. Any members right now that could not make the November 22nd? Yes. At the same time, 2 o'clock. Okay, can anybody not make 1 o'clock on the 22nd, board members? It should not take that long. Well, it'll take as long as it needs to take. It won't be 4.5 hours, I hope. Yes. Yes.
I just have concern about something that's at the core of what FORA does, being shunted to a special meeting at the end of the week just before Thanksgiving. I just don't think that's appropriate. So I would prefer us to either find a date that is not, right up next to a holiday. So either our December 13th meeting, December 6th, still it's a special meeting, or wait until our regular meeting in January.
The problem that was explained to me earlier is we have 90 days from notification to have this thing and have some sort of consistency determination one way or the other. And if we move much further from the 22nd, we're starting to run out of that time. And we want to make sure we adhere.
90 days
December 6th would also work. John?
December 6th.
And December 13th would also be within the window. 90 days from September 24th is December 23rd-ish.
Okay, since it's not an emergency right now and we don't want to make sausage here in front of our constituents, the FORA staff will get to each one of the members. We'll take a look at each one of your calendars, find the most apropos time, and we will reschedule a meeting. So we meet the 90-day window and we don't push people up against Thanksgiving holiday.
And Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
might, I completely agree with Jane on this, that you're entering a very gray period as far as attendance goes based on the holiday seasons. My preference would be to look at this thing in January. And I realize that there may be some procedural issues that we need to look at, but it seems to me there's got to be a way to get to that period when, if we had it in November, I think that the response period to the questions that were asked is awful tight. If we get any closer to the period between Christmas and Thanksgiving, people's schedules tend to get a little bit set aside by holidays, and I'd much prefer to have us get into the January period where we've got a perfectly adequate period of time and we don't race the judgment on this issue.
Yes, Ralph.
If the issue is the 90 days, is there a way that we can, through procedure, extend that date?
We could waive the
Yeah,
time.
what we're going to
We
do,
could waive
we'll
the
have the
time or-
attorney, we'll have the attorney council take a look. Whatever we do, we want to make sure it's absolutely legal, considering the number of lawsuits and difficulties we've had with regard to complying with some vague requirements. We don't want another lawsuit. So, attorney council, his first priority will be determining exactly what we have to do, what the timeframes are, meeting the 90-day requirement. We will then get with each one of the committee members, find out the best time that you're available. We'll call the meeting. If we can do it in January legally and so forth, Dave, it makes sense there. But if not, we may have to earn our august pays that we have on this board and move forward. Yes.
But I think one of the questions council should consider is if the county can rescind, so the 90 days starts from a new measuring period. That's the key critical question here.
And Gail, to that, if I might, through the chair,
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
John Ford from the county is here, who's been our key planner on this. So, John, do you have any thoughts?
I would offer a couple of things. Number one is the county would be willing to waive any time frame if that's within our prerogative to do so. We would offer that to allow this to be continued into January. We would concur with that. We would ask one thing, that as part of the continuance, that the FORA board would considering requesting that the public present all their letters and information by a date certain, so that everything can be evaluated, responded to appropriately. Then when it is brought back in January, that the FORA board would have everything presented to it and an adequate analysis of all the information that's provided.
John, if we could have what you just said in writing, please, so we have a official record of it. We will pass it to our attorney counsel. We're talking about legalisms here, and we have a bunch of non-lawyers, with the exception of a couple. And we want to make sure whatever we do is legally sound. Okay?
Very good, thank you.
Any other comments on that?
No.
Okay, any other comments by members of the board? Thank you for your comment there. Any other comments by members of the public? Okay, back to the board.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Now, I
Yeah.
just want to thank Ms. Jane Haynes for her letter sent out. I just want to put it on record. I appreciate her sending out the letter.
She does an awful lot, a lot of work. Thank you.
Good work.
Okay, no motions required. We will deem it, we will come up with, like I said before, the best time and reschedule the meeting. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have an information briefing about the FORA Central Coast Veteran Cemetery Foundation loan payment agreement by Michael and Chrissy Maris.
Yeah, I'll try to complete this, Chair. This is simply providing the FORA board with an attachment that is the agreement between FORA and the Central Coast Veteran Cemetery Foundation. This is a case where the board authorized the executive officer to take the actions necessary to make sure that the application went forward to the federal government. This is an agreement that was not provided in a draft form or any other way to the board. Wanted to make sure that this final agreement was before the board and that you saw it. It simply states that there's a repayment of terms of the $350,000 loan by the Central Coast Veteran Cemetery, so the board members know that this is not a FORA obligation. I'd also like to take a moment, Chair, if I might, and just alert the other members of the board that the fundraising efforts continue to be very successful. We were informed earlier this week, and then again, I guess today, the mayors were informed by Jason Burnett that the fundraising has been going at the rate of about $100,000 a week or so, and we're nearly at we're over $500,000. We're nearly at the $617,000 that needs to be raised to pay everything back. So overall, this has been a very successful fundraising effort led by Jimmy Panetta and Mayor Burnett.
Any questions by board members? Saying none, out to the public? Yes. Yeah. Saying none, out to the public. Any questions by members of the public? Okay, that's it. I've been told by Authority Council we're trying to streamline these meetings as quickly as possible. We've gone from 4.5 hours down to less, so it's legally it's not necessary to have a motion for receiving reports all the way through, so unless there's a major direction given with regard to the report itself. Saying none, from now on, we're not going to be having motions, seconds, and votes on receiving reports. So that should streamline us a little bit more. Thank you. Next, we have the Capital Improvement Program Review, Phase 3 study. Steve Ensley has that one.
Members of the board, this is more of a heads up of an item that will be coming back to this board presumably in December. As you will remember, as part of your policy regarding the formulaic approach to rate setting, there is a second half of that that comes back to this board prior to the end of the fiscal year, June 30, and the contemplated activities would be that the consultant EPS would come online and do a phase 3 study of a number of items, in particular related to taking a further look at FORA contingencies and then a recommendation regarding fees and rates for next year, similar to what we went through last year. And I'd just like to read that out just so that people will understand that there are issues that were brought up last year are going to be considered. It includes a review of appropriate cost index, a review of transportation costs and contingencies as TAMC had requested, a review of general contingencies such as additional transportation costs, HCP endowment funding, as we've discussed in the past, is one of the major variables that is left, and additional utility storm drainage costs. Review of water augmentation costs also has become an issue to look at to make sure that if there are any reductions or increases in so-called capacity charges, that a commensurate reduction in our developer fee would also take place. So we'll be asking the consultant to look at all of those items and to calibrate the study to that. It would take place during January to May, more or less, reporting back to the administrative committee, and then coming back to this board during the capital improvement program review as done in all years. So that's pretty much just a heads up. We'll be back probably next month with the contract itself and scope of work.
We'll be waiting with bated breath. Any questions by board members? No questions by board members. Out to the public, any questions by members of the public? Saying none? Okay, that's it. Next on agenda, Executive Officer's report.
Yes, Chair, there are several items here I wanted to highlight. Under the Habitat Conservation Plan first, I wanted to note that we had a little bit of delay as a consequence of the shutdown that occurred with the federal agencies. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and others were not very active, so we lost quite a bit of time. I believe that they are now up and running, and they're scheduling additional meetings to kind of get the HCP back on track. I'm always afraid when I talk about getting the HCP back on track, because I think some board members are fearful that it's never been on track. But we are working feverishly to get this out for early next year. I wanted to point out item number 7. That's right, item 7G. Item 7G talks about the FORA board committee policy review. Lena, would you like to talk a little bit about this?
Basically, what we've outlined in this report is several of the board and committee policies regarding submission of public correspondence, distribution of public correspondence, and public comments. Just to kind of give all board members that may have not been here at the time these policies were enacted an idea of what staff does on a daily basis to deal with these items.
There are a couple of items that are important because the procedure for public communication with the board, the executive committee at some point last year pointed out that we should have emails and other items presented to the board approximately 48 hours prior to the board time frame. We've continually received emails, and the board members are getting them as late as the day of meetings with the expectation that we can respond. And so I know several board members have expressed repeatedly to me concern about getting things at the late date. It's often difficult to bring the full members of the public up to speed, but we will continue to try to implement that. I know it's been very frustrating to board members. I received at least a half a dozen phone calls today alone about why are we getting things so late. So we presented this last week because the executive committee asked that we present it to the board members and also to the public. That it's very difficult to adequately respond. We try to send our board packets out at least a full week in advance, and most of our board packets also are very similar to what goes to the administrative committee and the executive committee 2 weeks before board meetings. And so the public is generally aware of these items, and we're attempting to do what we can to try to improve the quality of our responses to these last-minute items. So I wanted to point that out. Also, over the course of time, board members have asked that we not provide very large board packets with lots of paper, but rather put items on the website. And so we will continue to try to provide links. I know that for almost every board member, those are working very well. You're able to access those and read them. So that I hope that's helpful. If there's other input that you can provide to staff about our using the internet and electronic and other information technology means to help if it's not working for you, and I know Chair Edelin sometimes has frustrated with documents we send to him, please let us know, because we're doing our best to correct that. And one of the ways is by building a stronger partnership with California State University Monterey Bay about accessing the internet and how we do that. We have a relatively slow process here using a DSL system. It appears as though with great help from our colleagues at CSUMB that will be expedited and will make that easier for board members to access the FORA website.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions by board members of our executive officer? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Seeing none. Next, we have items from members. Any items from any of the board members you'd like to share? Yes, Ralph.
The City of Seaside will be having a Veterans Day ceremony at the flagpole at 10:30 on Monday for anybody that's interested in coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Any other items from members? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, not in conflict with the City of Seaside, but give you 2 days of Veterans Day acknowledgement tomorrow. Saturday, November 9th, the City of Marina and the Friends of the Fort-Ord Warhorse are having a Veterans Day event at the Marina Equestrian Center, which is just off Imjin, just down this street. There'll be a flashing sign to tell you to turn right on California Avenue. There'll be a color guard. There'll be a brief talk about the history of Fort-Ord and how we can all work together to preserve that. And there is the Flash Museum, which is the museum of all veterans memorabilia, uniforms, and all kinds of different things that celebrate our veterans. So please come honor our veterans tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the Marina Equestrian Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Joe?
Well, speaking of Veterans Day, we have a couple of little events in Salinas. We have the at 11 o'clock at the Vietnam Veteran Memorial on Laurel Drive, they have a ceremony honoring our Vietnam veterans. And then at 2 o'clock, we have our third annual Veterans Parade. And if you can't make either one of those, you can go by our cemetery on Romney Lane, where the flags will be put up at 7 a.m. by our local American Legion and taken down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Today in Salinas, the local junior college, Hartnell, put on a Veterans Day program, and they had the honor guard from the American Legion post, and 4 young veterans that are attending school at Hartnell spoke of the importance of being a veteran, and Fort-Ord was mentioned as a place that they were looking forward to when they get really old like me. So, thank you.
That's really young, right? Okay. Mr. Robert Norris, you have any information on the golf tournament? I hear there's a golf tournament tomorrow somewhere.
Tomorrow morning, the Heroes Open, which all the proceeds will go to benefit the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery, will be kicking off at 8 o'clock with a little putting and driving clinic, and the golfers will be going to their carts at 9. We'll have a barbecue. Those of you who want to skip the stringent golf tournament and just come for the food and celebration, the barbecue lunch will be starting at 2:30. And if you're concerned about your game, we'll have the golf team from the community college and from the university will be there to hit your shots for you for a nice donation.
Sounds like a deal. Thank you, Robert.
Oh, I forgot. And Sunday is the 238th anniversary of the Marine Corps.
FORA. Yeah. Okay. Any other items from members? Okay. Saying none. Next, we have the public comment period.
Chair Edlin?
Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, Tom, go ahead, please.
Actually, just a question. Was the pledge done before you went into closed session?
No, it was not.
Did we forget to do it?
It was off the agenda for some reason.
It's
but
because we're going into Veterans Day, and we're going to do it on all 3 days to make up for it, right?
Tom, you are absolutely correct. Would you do us the honor and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now are we in trouble with the Fair Political Practices Commission for taking up an item that wasn't on the agenda?
Not at all. I'll take the blame for that one. Okay, thank you, Tom, for remembering that. Okay, public comment period is now open. You have 3 minutes to discuss any item not on the agenda, please.
Since I'm considered a public, I'll stand here again to give my comments. I'm Levon Stone, Executive Director of Fort-Ord Environmental Justice Network. I hear a lot about who the public is, but why are we last on the agenda for any comments? What I want to talk about first is the burn that we had that started on Monday morning. There seems to be no consideration for the toxic smoke that people have to breathe. You know, you might not like it, and if you were not exposed to the smoke, that's good. But we have reports from multiple people, school children, elderly people. We have pictures and we have videos of what happened with that smoke. We have children in grade school, 13-year-old children that wanted to go home because they were gagging from the smoke. You might not want to hear these kinds of things, but this is what we do. We are monitoring what is happening to our community. Our community is important. That's our public that everybody here is serving, supposedly. These things have to be reported, and they must be looked into. We have multiple people with asthma, babies, elderly people. And the fact of the matter is, open burning is dangerous. The smoke that is generated is dangerous. And I know that there have to be chemicals on the ground to make the fire burn faster. When the fire jumped the perimeter on Tuesday night, there was people all on the streets and everywhere taking pictures. And I'm just surprised that nobody seems to be knowledgeable about this or saying anything about it. It's one thing to have an action, but it's another thing to say, okay, this is what happened. It might not have been intentional, but it did happen.
30
and
seconds.
It's been happening. And something needs to be done about it. 30 seconds. Okay. And I would also like to have information on this, the reuse implementation, whatever this is.
10 seconds.
Acknowledgements A here on the agenda. I need to know how the general plan compares with the four-door reuse plan. Because right now, I'm not sure what the four-door reuse plan is.
Time.
And what we're going to do with the reuse plan after the contractors had the meetings with people concerning the reuse plan. So
Ma'am, your time is
I
up.
need to know how those compare. And somebody please let me know so that we can sit down and I can look at what it is that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next public speaker, please.
Having a question about the annexation of our water to the Marina Coast Water District. I'm getting the runaround for years now. First I was told from Marina Coast that LAFCO has to do it. Then I read the meetings here. MTWD has initiated the annexation process. I talked to Kate McKenna, who is at LAFCO, that they had given me her phone number. And she said, no, we haven't gotten anything from the Marina Coast Water District. My question to you is, who is responsible? For 2 years, I'm trying to get something, nothing. Here's a point, here's a finger pointing, there's a finger pointing, and we are not going anywhere. Now we are hit with 122% water bill increase over the next 5 years, and we can't do anything. Who is responsible? I want to know.
Next public speaker, please. Any other member of the public? Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff. My name is Carlos Ramos. First of all, as a volunteer in the community, I just want to say thank you to FORA for making an expenditure that, quite frankly, was quite costly to the taxpayers on this most recent election. But thank you for doing your due diligence. Thank you for doing what needs to be done as citizens step forward to voice their concerns. But something happened on Tuesday, and hopefully as we get the final results. What occurred was yet another settlement. We not only had the base reuse plan as a settlement, and not only did the Sierra Club sued, and we had another settlement. Now, the voters have spoken. Please, it's time to move forward. Whether it's 1 vote, 10 votes, 100 votes, or 1,000 votes, the voters have spoken. Because no matter who would have won, they would have said the same thing. We won. Well, the voters have spoken. It's been settled. The base reuse plan, something that promises jobs, housing, economic opportunities. Because of what was lost, we must do what needs to be done to meet that third E that we've already done for environmental purposes, for education, but now economic recovery. But we have some unfinished business. And I know because I signed one letter dated October 17th. There was a second letter dated October 17th and a third on October 18th. 3 community groups, the League of United Latin American Citizens, C-Jobs, Coalition for Jobs, Opportunity, and Business, and the Latino Seaside Merchants Association from the 4th District that has requested to the Board of Supervisors and now request to you an inquiry as to the appropriateness or inappropriateness of a FORA board member
30 seconds.
taking a position on the measures. It was the 4th District Supervisor. I was at an NAACP meeting forum, and unfortunately, Council Member Gail Morton was there advocating Measure M. What do we, the public,
10 seconds.
can expect from our elected officials that's inappropriate or appropriate? We need for this to be investigated, and we're asking for an answer immediately. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other member of the public wishing to address the board?
Jan Schreiner, speaking as a resident of Marina. And I have to say that the last speaker raised some interesting points. Many of us in Marina have been wondering what's happening in Seaside and how the city council could support a proposal that has not yet been approved by that council. They had a consultant, there was some research, and the research showed some kinds of interesting numbers about jobs, some fantasy in my opinion, because it's very hard to predict the future. And so I just think that the members of your audience need to be fair to one another. I'm sitting in the back row with several gentlemen who are making a lot of noise while people are speaking. There's not everyone making noise. Some of us are being very respectful to you and to one another. But let's all just keep that in mind, what a show of respect is for this system of democracy and for one another, whether or not we'd agree on how our public funds are used or who represents what. This is a place where we can come together and have a serious and respectful dialogue. We don't need to be pointing fingers at one another, especially because there's a lot of interesting things going on out there. What we really need to do is set aside the interesting things, set aside the disrespect, and work together toward whatever is the base reuse plan now. Stop amending and just work on it the way it needs to be done. A lot of work has gone into it, and we have to respect that work as well as respecting one another. I don't think it's too much to ask. People have died for this privilege, and we're going to honor them this weekend. And we can honor them every single day by making this system of democracy the best we can, by being respectful to each other and not manipulating it in any way, whether it be for financial gain or some kind of power. We don't need to be doing that. We need to be respecting the system, and we need to be respecting one another for the veterans' sake. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none, public comment period's closed. The question with regard to the Marina Coast Water District and the question with regard to the relationship of the base reuse plan with the 2010 Monterey County General Plan are pretty complicated. I would ask the lady and gentleman that asked those questions to contact Mr. Steve Inslee. He'll be able to sit down with you and answer your questions in a lot longer period than we have right now today. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the agenda. I would like to adjourn this meeting basically in solidarity with the brave people of the Philippines that are experiencing the worst storm on recorded history, winds over 215 miles per hour. Let's hope to get through it with minimum loss of life and damage. We are adjourned. Thank you.